welcome to another virtual edition of Mic'd Up Sports. And as you can see on our screen, we have two guests. Hopefully our third one will join us in a moment, but they all have something in common. They're all wearing the same shade of purple, and that's because they all are part of the coaching staff for Cretin-Derham Hall girls basketball, but all three have a lot of community ties as well. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves, and we will try to get the third member of our team joining us shortly.
Hi, I'm Brianna Edwards. I am the assistant coach at Cretin-Derham Hall.
Hello, my name is Crystal Flint, and I am the head girls basketball coach at Cretin-Derham Hall, as well as the CEO, founder of Triple Threat Girls Basketball and in My Lane blog.
And the other guest whose computer is working, so hopefully she'll join us momentarily, is Tisa Mitchell, who's also part of the Cretin-Derham Hall coaching staff. So while we wait to try to get her to log in, the reason we brought you on, and this has been an ongoing conversation, of course, all of you followed the killing of George Floyd and the conversation surrounding racial justice that has unfolded in the last month and a half, and the changes, the developments, the seriousness we're seeing with this discussion is at levels that I haven't seen before, and the repercussions of that incident still being felt. Earlier this week, Washington's NFL team said they were going to dump the name Redskins. They haven't found a new name yet, but another example of how seriously citizens, the business world, everyone is taking this. So I'm wondering, with you two, what do you make of everything that has happened, and what do you think it says about this issue of racial justice, police brutality, all these things that can afflict communities of color that is now getting more attention than it used to?
Sorry, go coach. Nope, go coach.
I just think these are, unprecedented times in all facets of our lives, from the pandemic that we have in terms of COVID-19, in terms of the high amount of video recorded police involved killings, as well as a spike in murders in urban communities, along with our education system. And it seems like all of these areas in health and in healthcare, or lack thereof. So all of these areas are just the injustices that are being brought out is really being magnified, and it's being put on a platform for the whole entire world to see. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've gotten from it. So we see the lack of compassion from the highest position in the land, to the lack of compassion on our police force, to the lack of compassion and support for our young people in the school system, to the lack of compassion to our elders in assisted living homes and in elderly homes, as well as our lack of compassion and support to those who don't have proper health care. So I think all of these areas are under the magnifying glass all at the same time, and it's really a bit too much to endure.
I would have to agree with everything that Coach kind of said. What I really realized is that a lot of these things already pre-existed before everything was being exposed. And I think now that we're in the era of social media and technology, that things are being brought to the forefront, but it's not something that was new, right? Racial injustice is not something that's new. Police brutality isn't new. Research shows that the numbers has not only increased or decreased, it's kind of stayed the same. for police brutality. It's just that now it's being heightened because you can actually see it. You physically can see what's going on somewhere in a different state because you have technology. I think all that combined, reason why it was heightened because everyone was in a pandemic. And in order to understand that what that pandemic did to a lot of people sitting in the house and quarantining, it allowed, there's some different psychological stuff happening. So when it was an opportunity to come outside, I think people not only, sorry, people keep calling me. I'm sorry, people keep calling me. People not only use that moment to be able to be outside even more, but it was definitely for a cause. If I decline a call, I'm so sorry. People don't know. I put my phone on do not disturb. But yeah, so I just think that it's not new. About time that it's being exposed. About time that they are. You know what, Tisa, you answer the question because evidently no one wants to listen to me. I'm declining my brother's call and he keeps calling. So yes, but that's my opinion on that situation.
She's talking.
I had my phone on mute so y'all wouldn't hear my child in his tablet. But I agree with everything that both Coach Crystal and Coach Bree have said. I will add, though, I think the pandemic allowed us to actually be focused. There wasn't any distractions. There wasn't any basketball. There wasn't any football. There's not any sports that were being played at the time. And it really allowed America and Black America and white America to actually see what Black people have been dealing with for centuries. There was a focus. People were actually able to really be undistracted with what we've been going through for so long. And I know there's a lot of people that were surprised at the discrimination that we faced, and just hearing about how people couldn't believe that this has been happening in America for so many years. It's 2020. I feel like at this point, if you didn't know or if you didn't believe, you weren't listening. So I really feel like this time allowed people to focus and actually hear and see what we've been going through for this long. It's 2020.
Yeah.
I was so surprised.
On a positive note, one thing that I'm actually thankful that everything kind of occurred, which I hope this does not get taken out of context, people that did not know the history that I learned when I was in college about being a Black person in America now are learning, or not only seeking that information because of what transpired. Like, a lot of my friends didn't know the meaning behind Juneteenth, right? And so knowing that this whole pandemic, the racial injustice spike, that people actually sat down and started to focus on their history was probably, I guess, me being an optimist. That was the greatest thing that I've seen happen so far out of this, because a lot of people are like, now want to talk about the things that I've been trying to tell them since I've got done with college. But it's really nice to see that we're learning a little bit more. Me, when I say we're, like, Black people are learning a little bit more about themselves due to this situation. God forbid, we don't want another situation to happen like this, so that we can learn even more about ourselves. But that would be like the bright spot that happened out of everything that's transpired this last month and a half.
I totally agree, and I think it feels different. However, the verdict is still out, because we know that when you're in a situation where you have to sit down and you have to focus, it's almost like, people that are incarcerated. They get incarcerated and they're sitting down, they're sitting still, they're able to do the right things. But then when you're released and you go back out into the real world, that is when the real lesson gets put into practice. Because if there's no action behind all of the sharing of information and sending messages and saying, oh, I'm sorry that you're going through this, what can I do to help? What you can do is, when this pandemic is over and we all go back to our normal lives, what are you going to do when you see an injustice happening in the workplace, in the schoolroom, in the coffee house, in the boardroom, wherever it is that you socialize, or whatever your area of expertise is? Are you going to still say, oh, that's Karen being Karen, saying those stupid words? No, Karen
What are you
needs
gonna
to
call
be checked,
Karen out?
not by me as a Black woman, but as you as a white male or female or whoever it is that's encountering that, because that's the true test. And I do agree, Bree, not to, say, that people aren't paying attention and people aren't, but it,
But what's next?
know better. Once you know better, you have to do better. So
Yep.
the verdict is still out. And it just really amazes me that we still see a lot of foolishness too. Like police officers are still killing people
Yep.
in broad
Yep.
daylight
Yep.
with cameras on them. People are still going into, I'm sorry, I'm the pandemic, but I'm watching a lot of Twitter and social media, but you still see people still, I watched an incident where a man was with his 2 young children coming out of Walmart or something like that. And this lady on a bike, or she was homeless or whatever, and she accused him of stealing her car. And they commenced to trying to pull this gentleman out of his vehicle with his children in the car. And I'm just like, what? So we have to do better. We have to do better.
Oh, absolutely. And I think another thing, using our platforms to speak on things. Initially, in the beginning, I kind of felt like not uncomfortable because my opinion it doesn't match a lot of people. But I feel like we have to use that because the change is not gonna just come with us doing what we're doing or speaking on our platforms. Like, we're gonna have to really put some work in, because I think it's absolutely ridiculous that I can go to beauty school longer than it will take me longer to become a beautician than it was to become a cop. I think that's problematic for me. Like, knowing that my hair, the way that your ends are trimmed are more important than someone that's carrying a weapon that are policing people. And so when I 100% agree, Coach, I think that right now it's a trend, it's a fad, everyone's rolling with it. I want to support Black businesses, I want to support Black people, but I really, really hope people keep that same energy when the world opens back up. So I 100% agree, because I'm like, all right, y'all doing great right now, but what's going to happen when I wake up every day and I'm still a Black woman?
Yeah.
And you can go back to your normal life. You don't have to worry about, being judged for me on just the color of my skin. That's probably the biggest thing that I'm hoping that allies, that's the name that we coined, right, continue to keep supporting, just because it's the right thing to do, not just because it's a trend or it's a fad, or you want to post something on social media, or you want to tag me saying that you supported my Black business. That's not support my business because it's a business, not because I'm Black. And yeah.
Stop writing Black Lives Matter on the streets and not doing anything about it. That's not social change. I just saw a meme today, and I was like, yep, that's not social change. You're just writing something. What's your action to follow?
Yep.
What are you gonna do differently? How are you gonna hire people of color? How are you gonna make sure that the people of color you do hire are the right people of color, and not just because you need someone of color?
Okay.
Allow those people in the room where decisions are made. Allow those people of color a voice, and actually listen to that voice. Listen to suggestions. So we'll see. You're all right, Coach. We shall see.
We shall see.
We shall see.
Or we shall be right back here. And,
okay.
And it will get worse.
I was just going to say that. It's going to be worse.
I watched, now, mind you, I'm older than you guys. I don't know how old you all were in 1992. Okay.
I was 5.
Huh?
I was 5.
Oh my God.
I was 1.
Oh, what?
I was 10, so I remember what you're about to say.
So I watched on Netflix a 1992 documentary on the LA riots, right? And I was blown away by what was happening around us in South Minneapolis, over North Minneapolis and St. Paul and other, small communities with the rioting and all over the world. But when I watched LA riots in 1992, and I was 21 at the time, okay? And I watched it again in hindsight, and I was like, wow, I did not know it was that bad. Like, the entire community burnt up. Like we still have boards and windows covered, but businesses are still open. You know, I'm talking about entire communities are gone. I remember Reginald Denning getting pulled out of his vehicle. But what I didn't know, and what the news really didn't show, or maybe I wasn't paying attention, was that countless people got pulled out of their vehicles and brutalized. So it will get worse. It will get worse if we do not, like Coach Tisa said, actually do something about it. You have to do something about it. And nobody wants to be felt, no one wants to be treated unfair. The biggest thing people say, oh, that wasn't fair. And we always say, well, life isn't fair. But you know what? No one deserves to be treated unfair.
Right?
Especially because of the color of their skin.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think the thing that I was talking to some friends about was how, if it's not a guilty verdict, and the backlash and what that's going to look like. I think we continue to keep seeing time after time that my life does not matter, right? You can kill me and it could be justified. You can pull a gun on me and it could be justified. Like, I just seen this interview of the lady that pulled a gun on her daughters. I don't know if you guys seen that. A lady pulled a gun on her daughters. They almost hit her and her daughters, and then she pulled a gun on her and got arrested, and she was crying crocodile tears, saying that she felt threatened. You're threatened because of what? She's a Black lady with her kids. And I think it's really crazy because I'm raising a little Black boy, and to let him know that he has to do things a certain way just so he doesn't be seen as a threat, it's kind of frightening that I'm having a conversation with an 8-year-old about the things that he cannot do in society because people see him as being, for instance, a little Black boy sitting right there. Tisa's gonna have a conversation with her child about what he needs to do when he interacts with police officers. And this is real. Back when I was growing up, my mom told us we got pulled over because when she was worried, they were being raped by police officers when she was growing up. Now we're being murdered by police officers growing up. And it's like, when is these things going to change? And when is it not going to become a norm of me having to have a conversation with an 8-year-old about him remaining safe just so he can be able to come back home? Like, that's the problem that I feel that needs to change. And I think people need to be aware that that's a conversation that we have. Sorry, Tisa, your turn.
I often wonder, I think my child is adorable. I think he's cute. We walk around our very predominantly white neighborhood and everyone thinks he's cute. But unfortunately, that conversation with our children extends to when they're not seen as cute and adorable. Like, at what age is my beautiful, cute son going to be seen as a threat? And he's not going to be a little man. He's going to be a big man. He's going to be a big, tall, strong man. So at what point is he seen as a threat? Because I look around and I see Black children. I can tell they're 12. I can tell they're 13. I can tell they're 15. But to someone who doesn't quite recognize that, they do look like grown men. So at what point how do we establish that conversation with people who don't have that vision that we do, that these are children? This is a 15-year-old child. This is a 16 child. Yes, he has muscles. Yes, he has facial hair. He's a child, though. Like, we also need to open that dialogue. We need people to know, to recognize our children. They're children, but they're being treated as adults because they are big and they're strong and they have muscles and they have mustaches and beards. It's also a part of that. It's not fair that we have to have those conversations with our children. And once you have that conversation, there's a part of their innocence that they can no longer get back.
Tell me.
And that's not fair. It's not fair, and it's been perpetuated through every single generation. When I talk to my husband, when I talk to my father, it's conversations that they have had from their father, that had a conversation from their father. So we need to come to a point where we're still going to have those conversations, but we also need to have those conversations. Well, not we, but people that are not Black, people that are not a person of color, they also need to have those conversations with their children about having those, my brain just drew a blank, those subconscious or those implicit bias with people of color, and judging someone by how they look or by their hair, just that has to stop.
Yeah.
That has to stop, or adjust. I should say adjust, because there is a part of that implicit, that unconscious bias that keeps us safe as women. Like, I'm not gonna walk down a dark alley with a bunch of men at the end. That's just, as a woman, I'm not doing that.
Okay.
I'm not doing that either. But there's conversations that need to be had about how you view people of color in your mind and how that affects the judgments you make with your outside body. It's the best way I can put that.
No, that's spot on.
You know, what's interesting that you say that, but guess what? A white woman's not going to do that either. A Latina woman's not going to do that either. But as Black mothers, we have to have that conversation with our Black sons. A white mother doesn't have to have that conversation with her son. But to your point, the conversation that white mother does have to have is what you were alluding to. Like, you got to have that conversation with these young kids, because so as they grow up, you know, they're in your classrooms, they're on your basketball teams. Okay, so you have to learn how to not be afraid for your life, not to feel like these young men are threatened. Like you said, at what point does that happen? When does that happen? And why does that happen?
Man,
So
that's the crazy part. It happened sooner rather than later. I didn't expect to have it with my nephew at 6.
At 6.
But then there was a shooting that happened in Minnesota that he needed to be aware of. And he's like, why did he get shot? Like, why did he get murdered? And I'm like, guess we got to have this conversation now.
Well, you know what, though? How old was Tamir Rice?
12.
12 years old. That's not too far from, how old's your nephew?
He's going on, he's 9, about to be 10.
And it's sad that a 9-year-old isn't too young to be murdered either.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And we live in a predominantly, we don't say predominantly, just a white neighborhood. And it's like, you know, people in our little area know, we know the family because we've been around a lot, but to know that I'm frightened when my nieces and nephews leave our house to go walk to the stores with their teammates that are white, how making sure that their teammates will advocate for them because they are safe in this neighborhood and my nieces and nephews aren't. It's just a couple different things that just kind of sucks. Like, don't get me wrong, I love, if I could wake up every day 99.9% of the time, I want to be Black. But it's hard that when I wake up that I have to wake up differently than everybody else that's around me. I have to be a little bit more conscious of if I'm gonna be followed at the store today, just because I'm walking around. Okay, Brianna, do my locks look too masculine? I'm 6'1", a Black lady. A lot of times I'm big as some of the guys that I'm encountering. And so it's just like, it kind of sucks. It sucks, but I'm gonna continue to keep using my platform to speak on it, to let people know that I should not be able to feel uncomfortable in every place I go, or I should not be able to get looks just because of what I look like physically, because it's a privilege that you don't have to go through that. And that's another thing. We don't even talk about privilege. That's a whole other conversation. Like, when people are like, you have privilege too, but yeah, your privilege it's a skin privilege. How can you? But yeah, I don't want to go on a tangent. But yeah, that's how I kind of feel about that subject. We could talk, y'all.
It's over. Mike asked one question. We didn't talk for
one question.
I'd be fine if this is how the podcast goes. I ask a question, the rest of you steer the ship, then I can go make lunch, make dinner, and actually, Brianna, what you discuss, maybe you and I can follow up on this conversation when you get time after we're done here, because that's something that I've had discussions with in much detail with several of my past guests, and yeah. And why'd you have to remind me about being 6'1"? I'm 5'11", so like I'm shorter than you and Tisa.
Yeah, it's okay. At least you're still tall.
That's okay.
Big, beautiful Black women.
Yeah. And I should make it clear, I'm used to it. I had Delisha Milton-Jones on not too long ago. I covered the WNBA for 10 years, so I've interviewed Brittany Griner and Candace Parker and Sylvia Fowle. So I'm used to it. So no inferiority complex here. Something I did want to touch on, and I appreciate you kind of feeding off each other. I can tell you're all basketball athletes, past or present, because the way you're just feeding dimes to each other in this conversation. But you've all spoke of the experiences you have faced as Black women, and I'm curious if you recall the first time, the first moment where you dealt with prejudice or racism that illustrates why you have to have these discussions with young Black men about the hazards they face, or why you have to be conscious of things, as you alluded to, Crystal, that other parents or folks like myself don't have to worry about.
I can start this one. So the first incident of me knowing something wasn't quite right, I was in kindergarten, and my kindergarten teacher told me that I was cute for a colored kid, for a colored girl. Yeah, she told me I was cute for a little colored girl. Now, I knew that she was giving me a compliment, but there was something about the compliment that didn't quite seem right. Like, why couldn't I just be a pretty little girl? But I had to be pretty for a colored girl. And this was in the 80s. This was in South Minneapolis in the late 80s. And I was pretty for a colored girl. And I remember just feeling like not feeling happy about being complimented. Just like, I didn't know what colored meant. I didn't understand why there was additional things, because my mom always told me that I was beautiful, and she said nothing about, my color in that way. She loved my beautiful brown skin, and she definitely poured that into me. So when I heard my white teacher say that I was pretty for a colored girl, I was a little confused. Like, I didn't quite understand, but I knew something wasn't quite right. Mm. And that was in kindergarten. So I was 5. Well, just turned 5. 5.
Well, are you done, Tisa? Okay. So I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, very segregated Boston, Massachusetts. And growing up, I lived in the projects of Roxbury, Orchard Park. I lived in Dorchester, which is heavily Hispanic and Black. I walked to school every day from kindergarten to 4th grade. And then when I got into the 5th grade, is when I was faced with something is different, something's changing here. So around that time that I was about to enter 5th grade, mind you, I had Black teachers, I had white teachers, I lived in a predominantly Black neighborhood, and everybody around me was Black. So we began integration of schools in Boston, and we had to be bused from our community to South Boston High. I mean, not South Boston, I'm sorry, South Boston, which was predominantly white, Irish Americans lived there. So at that time, I cried like a baby, because what I remembered of South Boston was white families standing at the school, trying to tip over buses of Black kids coming to the school. And it was bad. Now, I saw it from afar, but when I had to go, when I learned that I had to go into that environment, I was petrified. I was petrified because that was totally out of my element. And Mike, I could send you some video on this, or show you where you can get some things if you want to show it, because I think people would be floored to know that. So from our communities, Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, busloads of Black kids were bused across town to an all-white neighborhood. But that it didn't end at that. We met up in another Black neighborhood called Columbia Point. about, I would say maybe 10 busloads of Black kids with police escort in the front and police escort in the back of the bus to go to school. Thank God nothing ever happened. Thank God nothing ever happened. But that was my first real indication of, wow, this is serious. This is serious. There is a world out here, like this. And that was about the 5th grade. So, and then obviously, as time went on, being in college and seeing someone write nigga in the dorms or something like that, really got my attention. But I actually, my major was sociology, women's studies, and African American studies. So I learned a lot about history of our people through a lot of those classes in college. Yeah, my parents talked about, certain things, and I knew about Martin Luther King, obviously, Rosa Parks and Malcolm X. And at that time growing up, we thought Malcolm X was bad and Martin Luther King was good, and Rosa Parks let us sit, in the back of the
and that's also a whole nother story. You want to talk about the hate that we have for coronavirus.
Oh, we do hate coronavirus. That's why we're doing Zoom meetings.
She's talking about the hate that we have
between each other and one another, and the colorism,
and where that comes from. Like, I think what's like listening to you guys' story, I was sitting there pondering as I was walking to my car, of course, of like when the first time I realized I was Black. Like, you got to think, like, you're Black, right? But the first time it's like, wait, okay, there's a distinction. So I was a professional dancer as a kid, and I danced, and it was about 1,500 dancers in this dance company. And there was probably about 3 Black kids. It was me, another girl, and another guy, and a part of the professional dancers. And I remember when I was 7, the first time was when I got called. And I didn't get called nigga, I got called ER. And that I didn't belong because I was on a scholarship and all the rest of the parents were paying. And I remember how I felt. And I'm not gonna lie, I reacted not in the best way ever. I tried to drown the girl in the pool because I was upset. Because I was like, wait a second, I've seen it in a movie. I've heard people get called this in movies, and I knew that was a bad term. And for someone to tell me I didn't belong, but how I felt was like, wait a second, like, how do I not belong just because I look like this? And it sucks because especially being an athlete, and traveling in places and being a predominantly Black team in high school, I don't know how many times I've got called that while I'm playing basketball. It's like more than my hands and my toes, right? And it's like to see that now it don't affect me because I'm like, now you're being ignorant. But it's just to see that, wow, that's crazy. We're sitting here as 3 very successful Black women, and we're talking about moments that we should be children. Like, that in itself is a privilege that other people have that we did not have. Our innocence was taken from us at very young ages, that we were seeing things that people don't even see in their lifetime at adolescent age. Like, that just blew my mind. Listen to both of you guys talk. I was like, wow, like, what we have to go through as Black people to just be present in the world actively who we are today is absurd. And it also gave me a little sense of pride, is that, wow, we are really dope. We're really strong individuals to be able to have to endure all these things and still be successful. Like, that's probably the most beautiful, ugly thing out of this whole conversation, is that, we went through some stuff and we're still successful, even though we went through all of this. Like, that's what demographic of people do you know have to go through as much as Black people have to go through, and we're still successful? And I also now makes me understand why some aren't. There's a lot of hurdles you got to jump to just get here and just to be able to sit and be like, okay, I'm here. But we still are not really here, because I can only imagine what Coach Crystal has to go through on being a Black administrator at her school. I'm not even going to talk about what I have to go through being the one of the only 2 Black teachers in a school that are 95% Black children, and it's only 3 Black teachers. Yeah. So it's it's continuous hurdles, but yeah, I was 7 in my first experience. And I'm happy that I don't harm people now, wink, wink, but I'm just kidding. But no, I just think that it's crazy that our innocence was stripped from us and we don't get the opportunity to be innocent and to just be children and to just enjoy life. That got to change. That got to stop. That's ridiculous. But yeah, I digress.
I want to take a slight pivot and talk more about sports, and something you said triggered just a lot of emotion, just playing sports in general. And people, it annoys me, and it happens all the time when Black kids are labeled as out of control or overly aggressive because of their style of play. Gives me a headache right here. Or they talk about how, someone's body, how their athleticism, but they don't talk about their sports IQ or their basketball IQ. They talk more about the physical attributes that the athletes have. And rarely, especially now in football, you see it more, but even the position as middle linebacker, that was the defense's quarterback. There weren't a lot of Black middle linebackers because that's a position for your brain, or quarterbacks, that's a position for your brain. And in Black athletes weren't seen as smart. They were only seen as athletic and strong and physical. And now when you watch our kids play, I hear it all the time. Oh, they're out of control. They're out of control. But if you see a team that's not of color, oh, they're playing so aggressively. They're so aggressive. That's wonderful. But they're not out of control as well. So they're just.
You speaking facts, sis, today. I seen that this weekend. And I was like, no, they're just aggressive. So you might want to tell your kids to be just as aggressive as theirs, because that ain't changing. And it wasn't even my team. It was the city. The team that has all Black girls. And you just hear their parents chirping. That right there kills me. But you will, don't even get me that. I'm not going to speak on that one. Nick Cannon got fired for his opinions. And I'm not trying to be Nick Cannon, but it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
It's funny because, not funny, but it's interesting that, in the world of sports, that there's a lot of parallels in terms of positions of power and regarding officiating. Now, I was an official, and I had this conversation actually with my husband. And, we raise our kids, and, I, as a coach, I don't want to blame an official for a loss or for calls, but our kids also deal with those same issues in sport through officiating, in terms of officials who may not see the athleticism of kids from the city, and they want to correct their play, their style of play. And so I'm going to call travels, and I'm going to call fouls, because, city kids learn to be real aggressive, and we press up the floor. And it's in particular at young ages, it's a turnover if you don't know how to dribble, right? It's a turnover if you don't know how to dribble. So it's like, you have to make a distinction in terms of when it is a foul and when it's just aggressive play that other kids cannot handle. So I just think it's interesting how, sports parallel the world. And it really shows some of the same kinds of situations in terms of that abuse of power. I also feel, as having been a Black official, that I've given out technicals to kids who have said, which one of these boys are your son? Okay, so I have an all-white team and I have an all-Black team, right? And if that Black team is really dominating that white team, as a Black official, I have to, or I shouldn't say I have to. I will not try and make sure that calls are balanced so that I don't look like I'm being biased toward one team. And I feel that sometimes Black officials do that, but you never will see a white official do that. And a lot of times there are 3 white officials, an all Black team and an all white team, and that's not in their frame of thought. But I have seen, and I've spoken to some officials who are Black, who says, well, yeah, I had to make that call because I didn't want to make it seem like, no, you don't. No, you don't. It's not your job to make sure no one feels as if you are being biased. It's your job to make sure that the playing field, that the kids are safe, that you're making judgment calls, that you're applying the rules. That's your job. It's not your job to try and figure out what this coach is thinking, what that parent up there might be thinking.
Okay.
And I think that happens. That happens, unfortunately.
I mean, that also goes back to just being able to be as a Black person or a person of color. It's more difficult for us to just be who we are. I mean, we get talked about how our hair naturally grows out of our scalp, and it's how it's not professional. So it's more difficult for Black people just to be who they are and to be their authentic self, because of the reasons Coach just talked about. We have to prove something. We have to show that we're this way or we're that way. And my husband and I talk about this all the time. It's like we live in 2 different worlds. We have our inside the house world and we have our outside the house world. And they're not the same worlds.
I think the biggest thing that I've felt is that I have to minimize who I am to allow other people to feel comfortable in their own skin. I think my mom really trained me to always be myself. Brianna, listen, people always gonna have something to say about you, whether good, bad, or ugly. So just be yourself. And I'm very opinionated. I have no problem telling you how I feel, but that is seen as an angry Black woman, or I'm aggressive, or just because I express my opinion, or I've seen a same person, a counterpart of a different race, have the same opinion that I have, and it is praised for them sticking up for themselves or standing up for themselves. And I think it's really, really crazy because I was watching, there's 2 athletes, 2 very, very, very known athletes, I will never say their names, one being white, one being Black, have the same type of game, right? Basketball game. And they both are aggressive. They both talk trash. But when you see the white person have this conversation, it's like, yeah, I just love that. I love that about this player. But then the other person on the other end is being talked about. Like, saw these 2 play against each other and sat and listened to conversations on how they had about this Black girl and this white girl. And they were comparing them, how this one had a bad attitude, but they have the same type of play. And I think it's just crazy that what Tisa said, we just can't be. Like, we can't be who we are without being ridiculed in some way or some form. And I think that's where we need to start having more difficult conversations with people who don't look like us. And I do all the time. I have no problem educating people on how I feel. But I think a lot of us need to take the time to say, versus saying like, okay, whatever, I'm not going to let them know, and start telling them like, this is not right. I know a lot of times my cousins don't want to have conversations with people that don't look like us because they feel like it's not their job to educate them. But whose job is it? The media? Are they going to be the people that's going to educate them about us? Or are we going to educate them about us? So, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, so don't even get me started about how many games I got cheated just because I was Black and I was playing against a team that was all white. I know for a fact I felt it. I've got laid on my back, busted lip, and nothing was called. And I was like, even if I speak on the terms of why I left overseas, my coach, and I think I told Coach Chris or Coach Tisa this story. So I just got back from knee surgery. It was like my first time practicing. And one of my teammates clotheslined me while I was going to the basket. She was a white German girl. And my coach said this verbatim. He said, your ancestors went through slavery. You should be stronger than that.
Wow.
And you thought that was okay? Oh, absolutely. This is exactly what came out of my coach's mouth. This white man, this white German man sitting in front of me.
I think you told me that story. I remember that story.
Oh yeah. And so
yeah.
I decided, I said some stuff. I threw the ball out the gym, and I told the owner he had 7 days to fire him, and he fired him on the 8th, and I already was on a flight back to Minnesota on the 7th. I meant that because I said, what is that saying about how important I am as a person? I'm a Black woman first, and you're not going to disrespect me. And it's knowing that people feel comfortable. That wasn't the first time I ever heard stuff like that. That was just the last time someone ever got to say something to me like that. So it's just kind of, it's crazy that I know I'm going off on a tangent, but yeah, that happened as an adult by somebody that was my coach, a counterpart, and he had the audacity to tell me my ancestors went through slavery. I should be stronger than that.
I mean, but that feeds into the mentality that Black athletes are tougher. Hi, baby. Every time I talk, he comes over. That Black athletes are tougher and we can take it and we're stronger and faster. Well, yeah, through slavery.
Going in and out. Yep.
Through slavery. So, and I mean, you want to talk into the medical field. Just, there's a whole book, Medical Apartheid, I think is what it's called, about how Black women were used as test subjects. Black slaves used as test subjects for a lot of gynecological things. I mean, really? How through the childbirth. I mean, we're dying in childbirth. We are dying at higher rates.
In 2020.
Yeah.
So
I seen a girl die in childbirth 2 weeks ago.
I did not know that. I read something about like that is a thing right now.
No, that's been happening.
Mm.
Black women die at a higher rate. That's why when I do have children, I will have my children at home. My chances are better at home than they are in the hospital. Serena Williams almost died in the hospital. They didn't listen to her. She had a blood clot. She said, I need this. I know I have a blood clot. She had to advocate for herself. We're talking about an athlete, one of the most known athletes in the world, almost died at a hospital because they didn't listen to her. Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, I am happy to say my birthing experience was awesome. My doctors were great. I gave birth in a hospital and everything was fine. And my son is healthy and I'm healthy and I'm here to tell the tale. But everyone doesn't get that experience. Every Black woman doesn't have that experience, and it's not fair. Yeah.
Wow.
You should name this, Mike, What's Fair and What's Not. Okay? That should be the name of this segment.
Well, there's just so many avenues, so many parallels. Okay, not parallels, maybe not the right word. Entryways, exits. I think you get the adjective that I'm going through here or trying to convey as far as the conversations and all of the issues that afflict yourselves, other members of the Black community. And that's one reason I opened up this podcast, was to give people this space. And Brianna, I can attest to your opinionatedness, and I'm glad you have that because it's given me a lot of amusing moments. And it's funny, or weird, I guess. Funny is not the right word, but weird that, myself, Tisa, Crystal, we all have fun. Like when the Raptors beat the Warriors last year and you went off, we all found it amusing, but others might see that as out of control. I remember a conversation we had after a player, well, you weren't there. I think you saw the clip. I covered a game where a minor fight broke out at a tip-off event, and no one asked me if I was
there.
Yes, Crystal and I were there. Crystal was there, I think, just as a fan and there to watch. That's right. You had to get in there. And I'm going, what in the world? But, and and some were like worried that I was going to see this player differently because she got caught up in a fight. It's like, no, let's see how she responds to this mistake. Others may not have that sort of leniency. And I told you, Brianna, and others why I chose not to air the video, because I don't want to convey any stereotypes. So I don't want my footage to convey any stereotypes about Black or white women. But it's interesting that, as you've discussed, I don't understand everything, and I never will, but I do my best to understand and try to be as empathetic as I can about what you go through as Black women, and others would seem to want to write you off in a hurry, if I'm making sense.
No, absolutely. The crazy thing is that I think a lot of times, I don't know how many times I wanted to punch somebody on the court. I'm just gonna be honest. Seriously, no, the things that you go
when I would bring up the
things that you go through as a Black athlete, the times that you get pushed in the back, the things that they say to you. I don't know how many times I'm like, listen, the restraint that I had to show And then you even see freshman year, Brittany Griner punched somebody. And no people ridicule Brittany Griner, but they didn't watch that whole game. I did. That girl was going at her the whole game, hitting her in the back, cracking on her face. So when she decided she had enough, they ridiculed her. But no one watched that entire game. I did. That girl was antagonizing this girl. I can only imagine what she was saying to her. And it's like that stuff like that is like, when we react, we're seen as the bad people. But we
microaggressions. Microaggressions. You can't prove it. It's minute. It looks like it's nothing. They're called microaggressions. They have a name. Yeah, that's what she was doing to Brittany the entire game. Little microaggressions. Yeah.
And she got socked for it. She got 2-piece for it with me, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I just think it's just
we're not advocating dishing out 2 pieces.
Yeah, you're right. We're not anymore. I'm saved, sanctified, and filled with the Holy Ghost. But it's like, it's understandable, and sometimes I can get it. But it's like having to be taught how to show restraint early, or restraint is challenging to say the least. Now being an adult, I have restraint, but as a kid, it's really challenging, especially when you were taught. I know I was taught when someone hits you, hit them back. I'm like, Mom, on the basketball court, I can't do that. So it's like if you have to really walk on eggshells as a Black human being in America. That's one of the point that I'm trying to get. Like you really, really have to walk on eggshells. And so, but yeah, I digress.
It's okay, Brianna. You can digress as much as you'd like. That's why I offered this series. It's meant to be a platform or a space where people can share their thoughts without worried about being filtered or saying something.
Now, filter me if you can. Okay, whatever you don't like, just filter it out.
No,
we can edit it together. Just filter it out.
No, but I've had some folks. I had Arminta Harrington mention how therapeutic it was just to have a space where you didn't have to worry about someone judging you or saying something too outside or too out in left field. Like, no, speak your mind. That's why I'm doing this. But something, as I know you have a meeting, Brianna, so there were a couple of things I wanted to include you in on before you have to go. And one of them is this, even though you have illustrated this and every other guest I've had have illustrated the difficulties, the challenges, either in the community or with yourselves, with microaggressions, macroaggressions, etc. It's a really long list. But I would like to know what the three of you admire most about being a Black woman.
This melanin, okay? I wouldn't choose to be anybody else. The versatility of us is phenomenal. You can see us in different shades. I have cousins who are as, I won't say as white as you, Mike, but they're really, really white. And then I have cousins that are as dark, as dark as the TV when it's turned off. And I just think that versatility is what I admire the most about being a Black woman, that you can see someone and they're like, wow, like we're just beautiful. So that's what I love. Sorry, Mike.
And now I just turned red.
I love the fact that, we make something out of nothing. I mean, if you look, I mean, during the whole, from the pandemic to the George Floyd situation and just how we come together, I've really, come to just always have a greater appreciation for us. I remember, after hearing about, the North Side and Cub Food, I was like devastated. I was like, where they gonna go and get food from? I was just torn apart. And then to go, over north and to see on like 3 different blocks that we had set up makeshift pantries, like people were able to go to 3 different places and get food. And it was outside in the heat, in the rain, didn't matter. We had a church that did it. We had a former police officer that did it. And we had a comedian, your cousin.
Ashley Henderson. Shout out to Ashley Henderson. And Joseph Sutton.
It was really beautiful, but we're gonna make something out of nothing. When you think that we're down and out, we're gonna be like, oh, okay, that's all we got left. All right, well, this is what we're getting ready to do with it. And it's something beautiful. I mean, most times it's something beautiful. And that's just the greatness of Black people. And it's from our music, from how we dress, how we wear our hair, how we talk, swag, like all of that is just, you know, if you just watch anything, a lot of time it came from Black people. Let's just be honest. Yeah. And I love it. I love it.
Okay, I love it. What about
all
you,
those, all those things. I mean, just, and I'm about as what's the word, is cis straight hetero as you could be, but there's just something about just Black women that is absolutely beautiful. You can get 31 different people in 1 month just by changing our hair.
Okay, say it again, sis.
We're magical. Like, seriously. And to talk about the ingenuity, like, just to elaborate on what Coach Crystal said, the ingenuity that we have as Black women to completely make something out of nothing. I grew up poor, so my mother was a seamstress. You know, I never went without a formal dress, because she would say, you know what, I got $25 in a coupon. And we went to the fabric store and we made that happen, because my mother is a genius. And she's passed that down to me, and I'm going to pass that down to whomever I can, my cousins, my nieces, my whomever. And just there's a love that comes from Black women that I can't explain. It's a motherly love to whomever's in reach, whoever I can touch, whoever can hear my voice.
Absolutely.
There's a mothering, there's a love, there's a sense of grounding that I feel with Black women the most. When I'm around my sisters, there's strength in numbers. Even though, I mean, pandemic, we can't touch. You see how myself, Crystal, like Bree, you see how we vibe off one another. There's strength in that connection that we have. You can't really explain it. You can only just witness it, and it's magical. It's beautiful.
And it's dope. Because we say sis. I actually made a joke, and then this is my last point before I have to go. She said, when we say sis, we ain't really sisters, but we see each other as sis. I think it's just beautiful, man. Black people, we're dope. We are amazing. And when you say nothing out of something, if y'all look at the history of food and why we eat what we eat, we made nothing out of the garbage and the scraps that they gave us. And it's phenomenal. It's like our delicacies now. But yeah, we just dope.
I will say this too, Mike. You know, the greatness of Black people, and you see all of what we've endured, and we just not out here killing white people. We just not out here turned up on police officers. That says a lot about who Black people are. And I don't remember who said it. I don't know if it was a Black person or a white person, but someone said, isn't it amazing that we're not just out here getting folks back? Because that's not who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And we could easily say, you know what, I fear for my life, so I just started. We have not done that.
Nope.
That's the greatness of Black people. I think that we are I feel we are the most compassionate people on the planet.
Absolutely.
The most compassionate people. When you see, and it's not to say that other people haven't seen it, but how many times you see someone say, you know what, this person killed my son or my daughter, but I'm going to take them into my home and I'm going to love them, or I forgive them. Black people do that all the time. All the time. People like, I can't figure out why that is. I wouldn't do it, you know, but that's our heart. We're compassionate people. We are compassionate.
Absolutely.
Brianna, do you have time for one more?
I'm gonna have to put my GPS on because I'm nowhere close to where I think I need to be. But I think I should. It's fine. They ain't doing nothing important. It's outside anyway.
Well, I just wanted to add something to what the three of you have said as far as the compassion and the admiration, and how I've met all three of you through basketball, but through different means of it. Crystal, I met you when you were officiating a game, and that morphed into a relationship where you helped me get some work at the University of Minnesota for a few years, and now it's cool that I've been able to cover your games as a coach and your son's games at North and at Cretin-Derham Hall. And it's just a reminder of how I maybe have hung around the sport for too long, but that's fine, that I've been able to watch, you and your sons grow, and you've talked about them. And I remember meeting you, Brianna, at the state tournament. Not your best moment. It was after a loss to St. Michael Albertville, but since then, you and I have shared a lot of laughs. As I mentioned before, like when the Warriors lose, like last year, I mean, we're having fun at your expense, but I think Tisa and I were losing it. But it speaks to how you're not afraid to share your thoughts, and of course it's sports, so it's something we can laugh at. But no, I've seen you grow from that kid who went from maybe a low point, didn't have the ending you wanted, and now you've over time found your voice. And I forgot all the athletes you got to play against in the Big East. I saw some old photos where you went up against Skylar Diggins in Notre Dame and Maya Moore in UConn. And it's like, man, you've had a lot of brushes with greatness. No wonder why your businesses are taking off.
Oh, and, thank you, Sugarfoot.
And Tisa, probably the one coach among the Cretin-Derham Hall group that she and I can make pop culture references to each other. You didn't quite pick up on the Jean-Luc Picard reference I made before we started, but Tisa does, and she and I have joked who the bigger nerd would be. But we've had a lot of fun with that, and it all started with her jokingly taking offense to not knowing who she was at the time, because I met her when you took the North job, Crystal, and she, I knew the other Crystal, so I knew the two Crystals. I hadn't seen Tisa. I should have. I mean, I'd seen you around, so destiny would have brought us together. And I didn't realize you were joking. And once we sorted that out, it's...
Don't you see those banners? She
okay,
I know,
Tisa
she's
said, wait a second,
responsible for two of them.
mine.
But it was like...
Tisa said, those are mine.
I better recognize.
Okay.
Yes,
Put some respect on it. Tisa Thomas. You probably knew Tisa Thomas.
Well, now I'm watching all your old tapes from Tamara Moore's senior year when Tisa was a sophomore. So now I'm understanding the greatness that Tisa had as an athlete. But I just wanted to add that to this discussion of why I admire the three of you, because all three of you have played a big part in my growth and friendship as well through different facets. And hey, when I've had rough moments, you've all helped out in your own ways. But the one question I wanted to ask you before you go to your meeting, Brianna, and it's a sports question, and I ask this of all my guests, since the three of you were all high school and Division I athletes, throughout your athletic career, what was the most exciting moment and the most embarrassing moment?
You said high school and college?
Well,
that's what I get. That's big.
Pro or professional, just any point in your athletic career. And while you go think about it, I'll grab the Jeopardy music because I am looking at.
I would say one of my I've had a few exciting moments, but one of the most memorable moments for me was in college at the University of Minnesota when we broke the attendance record at the University of Minnesota at the time, which was only about 4,800 people, something like that, pre-Lindsay Whalen. But Don Shelby with WCCO did a promotion to go for a record. And at the, prior to that, we had a couple hundred people in the stands, maybe. And that's a moment that I will never forget. We beat Purdue and Indiana in back-to-back games that weekend. I believe Purdue was ranked top 10, maybe top 20 at that time. I want to say they were top 10. And we swept them both at home before Jimmy Jam. Terry Lewis was in the stands. lot of dignitaries was in the stands. I said, I want to believe that Prince was in the stands. I don't know if he was or wasn't, but that was a huge, huge moment in my career with the Gophers. So I would say that, and then a very close second would be beating Notre Dame on their floor with the first team to go to the NCAA tournament, which I was on in 1994. We were number 10. They were number 7. No, let me stop. But no, really.
Right. Look, Coach Crystal got her numbers, girl. You better speak on it.
It's a double dose of history, Crystal.
I don't remember, but I remember that. We were a 10 seed. They were a 7 seed at Notre Dame, and we beat them. Got the brakes beat off of us by Vanderbilt after that, but I won't go into that.
How many must be the most embarrassing?
Most embarrassing, I would say, was getting beat by Kansas. I want to say Kansas beat us by 50, y'all. Ooh. 50. And Coach Marion Washington, I don't know where she is right now, but I don't know what my coach did to her, but she pressed us that whole game, and she left her starters in that whole game. And
that's personal. That's personal.
Listen to me. It was a college game, y'all. 50 points. But my coach, Linda Hill McDonald, being who she is, she said, do not forget this. Remember how you feel right now. We played Kansas the next year at Williams Arena, and we beat them. So.
Dang.
Yeah, we got the breaks beat. 50 points in college. Oh.
I would say my most
I digress.
I can't, Coach. My most memorable moment was section finals. We were down 22 at halftime to Orono. I was pissed off a lot. But I don't know. I had this feeling that we was gonna win, but I just knew that I had to be in the game. I had 3 fouls going into halftime, and so I got to the locker room, and as Coach Johnson always allowed me to talk to the girls before she came in, and I ripped them. I'm talking about every 8th grader on that team was crying. So mind you, this is behind the scenes, which y'all don't understand. I was really tough for these babies.
Was Starr and Johnson on that team?
Huh?
Was Starr and Johnson, were they on that team then? Yeah. Okay,
they were made to cry. I ripped them the most. And I went off on them. I'm like, y'all, we sitting there playing soft. We down by 22 to a team that we could beat by 50. I went off on them. Coach Johnson decided not to talk to them at all. She just allowed me to be the person to talk to them. And we came back out, and I got my 4th foul right away. And I was like, it's over. I got to sit. And I sat on the bench, and I cried for about a good 3 minutes. And so the person on the team that was really close to me, probably like the closest that I was Anna Moore. She was a junior at the time, or she's a sophomore, and I was balling. And so Coach Johnson put her in for me. Anna scored the next 12 points. She went on a 12-0 run by herself. She knocked down 4 threes. I didn't see these threes because I was still crying because I was like, oh, my senior year is over. And Coach Starks nudged me look. And I looked up, and we were down by 8. I said, put me in the game. Put me in the game. It's time. Coach, put me in the game. And it's rest is history. Won the game by, I think, 3 points. I scored the next 12. And it was exciting. We went to state, and you guys know what happened to state. But that was probably the most exciting moment of my career, is to come back from a 22-half deficit and win a game. Was unheard of. Most embarrassing moment was my freshman year of college when we played UConn. I was obsessed with Maya Moore. Okay. So when I got on the court, I was like, oh my God, I got to guard Maya Moore. Wait a second. I've watched this girl for a really long time. And I'm like, dang, I'm a little taller. I got this. I'm about an inch or two taller than her. So I went to go box her out. Man, she put me on my butt so hard. It was so embarrassing. It was at UConn at their Excel Center with thousands of people there. And it was embarrassing. And it was a highlight clip for the biggies for that week, because I went to box her out and she like brushed me, like I'm talking about like a rag doll, brushed me down, and I fell on my butt. You just see me trying to reach while she's going up for an offensive layup. So that might be my most embarrassing moment.
You got posterized, Bree?
Hey, it was
You got posterized by Maya Moore.
Man, I got posterized by Maya Moore. First play of the game, my coach was just like, come on, come sit down. He put me right back on the bench. And I was like, thank you, because I can't listen, she's strong.
Welcome to college, Brianna. And
who could say that that's their welcome to college experience is Maya Moore. Like, that's the first person I got to guard. I just came back from a knee injury, y'all. That was like my third game in, and I got to guard Maya Moore. Y'all are tripping.
But hey, you got to see a glimpse of you. So when you saw her do what she did at Minnesota, it's like you knew, like what. It may have surprised some others, but you knew, like you could.
I knew when she came from Georgia. I been knew when she used to wear that little headband and her hair, her edges used to be out. I been knew.
And now look what she did. And I know Tisa, you have your answer, but look what she did for her friend. I think in Missouri, I forget his name. Helped get him out of prison.
Right, yeah, she dope. Look, but I knew she was phenomenal, and she didn't even apologize. She just shook my hand going through the line and pat on the back, like you got this kid next time.
So as you see, Maya Moore not only great as an athlete, but going back to what you said, Crystal, at the start, actively doing something to move this conversation. And Tisa, I know you've been itching to share your moment.
Don't cry, Tisa.
Oh, I'm not. You know how I get them sensitive.
Embarrassing, but I know her most hurtful moment. So.
Oh, well, I wasn't looking for hurtful. I was looking for these silly stories.
Go on,
most exciting, I don't really think it's a moment now that I'm older, but just being a part of a legacy of the start of something that anybody in basketball that say, oh, where'd you play high school? Oh, I played at North. Oh, you did? Like, it's just being able to be a part of that. And even though my memory has failed me and I can't remember the games anymore, but like I played with T, I played with Mari, Tamara Moore, I played with Mari Horton, I played with Felicia Bell. Like I played with all these women who did great things in basketball, who are also doing great things after high school basketball. So it's exciting to be able to say, I set the path for Bree, the last Division I female Lady Polar. Like I was a part of that groundbreaking, that the beginning of something that turned out to be just phenomenally, just magnificent, like historical thing. Like, oh, I was in there. Like that's something I can tell Titan. That's something Titan's probably gonna tell his kids. That's something, my parents still talk about and brag about. Oh, we came to the games and it was like this. Like it's something fun to laugh about when we all do get together. So I think it's more of a moment. As a coach though, one of my most exciting moments, real quick before I tell you my embarrassing one, I love the freshman team. I love the team that has the least skill ability. But boy, by the end of the season, you can't tell me nothing. We could have lost every game, but I got girls scoring who had never touched the ball before, and they're scoring points. Shoot, can't tell me nothing. Can't tell me nothing at the end of the season. I love that. It's so exciting to me as a coach. Now, my most embarrassing moment at the state tournament, back when I was playing, back in my day at the state tournament, we played at the barn. So, it's elevated, right? So a ball rolled off the court before, warm-ups. A ball rolled off the court. And I was like, oh, I'll just go get the ball. So I'm just going to get the ball, like, in the tunnel. And I don't know if it was, like, wet or what, but I just slipped. And, like, I saw my feet in my head, like, above, like, up here. And I laid there for a minute, like, did I just fall? Like, before a game. And, of course, like, the crowd is there. And everyone's like, oh! Oh, my God. I just slipped. And we're on the court warming up, and I think it was my senior year because Tyree Bronson was on the team, or somebody was like, "We saw your head, and then we didn't see your head." Yeah, that was pretty embarrassing. That was pretty embarrassing.
That's funny.
Did you know Crystal at the time, Tisa?
Crystal Taylor or Flint?
Yeah, this Crystal, the Crystal we have on right now. Because I was going to say, she could have warned you.
I knew of Crystal, the player who played for the U. Like, I knew her in that respect. Like, that's Crystal Flint. Like, I knew her like that. Not how I know her now.
Right.
I was gonna say,
you know, that's a regret that I have. You know, honestly, I came to the University of Minnesota in 1989. I never left that campus really, you know, except to go maybe downtown Minneapolis or to the midway of St. Paul. But I didn't know North Minneapolis like I know it now. I didn't know, you know, over on Lake Street. And I think, you know, honestly, I don't have a lot of regrets, but that's one of the regrets that I did have, is that I did not make that connection to the city when I was actually playing. I made the connection to the city, to the north side, south side, and things like that, after I graduated. And I wish I had done it sooner, because I really feel that, you know, I could have been more influential in getting probably a Tracy Henderson at the time, or a Brandy Decker at the time.
Brandy making that guap.
And those guys are a lot younger. I was out of coaching at that time that they came along. But I really wish I had, you know, really explored the city more. I was doing Shooting Stars at the time. But that was just, you know, that was just a week of camp, and that was it. But it wasn't, you know, going into those high schools and really getting to know the kids there.
And that's where we met, was at Shooting Stars camp when I was in either right out of high school or a senior in high school.
Yeah. You would.
Coach Christina, would be a great documentary for you to do. Sorry, so complete segue. Is the history of North women's basketball.
Yeah, you know, honestly, I ain't giving my secret away. Hang on.
Good job. That's what I'm talking about. I think that would just be dope. I thought about it, like, wow.
Do it, because he's a women's basketball guru.
Like, that might be dope for you to reach out to all the Division I athletes.
I will say this, Bree, you give it. Would you stop? Because Micah have it done next week. Micah have it done. Nah, but let me say this before we, you know, end this or whatever. Mike, I want to tell you how much I truly appreciate all that you do for girls basketball. And not only that you do it, but you do it at a high quality level.
Yep.
You know, when I can feel confident telling a coach, you know, that says, well, do you have video on? So I'll be like, yeah, go to Mike Peden, type in XYZ, and you have great footage, great commentary. You can see the players, you can see the numbers. They get to learn a little bit of history about them, because you've done your homework. I think you do a quality job for women and girls. And actually, I want to say that you started with that and then you ventured over to boys, but I think that is just so bomb, because a lot of people, they only want to do the boys and they only want to do the good boys. And you know, you do everybody, and you do it at a high level. I think that, you know, your interviews are quality, you do your homework, you're not shooting from the hip, you're not guessing.
Okay.
About anything. You know, it's like, that's true. Oh, wow, I didn't even know that about so-and-so. So you give some history to people that I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. And that you do it for girls. And a lot of men, they don't give a darn about girls basketball.
Nope.
I appreciate it.
Mike, you're awesome.
Have y'all watched Mike mingle though? Mike, like before recording or during the game, Mike is all in the crowd. Like, he knows everyone, and he makes sure he makes his rounds and says hello. He knows my mother. Like, Mike knows my sister. Like Mike knows everyone, and he goes around and, hey, how you doing? How's so and so? And he remembers details about your family that you may have just mentioned casually. Like,
Okay.
oh, how's your great grandma Sue? And how's that apple pie? Mike remembers those things. I mean, it makes it. Mike done fell out, but it makes it. Hi, baby. It makes it easier.
Oh my!
It makes it easier to say, yeah, this is a great person. He's a nice guy. Yeah, you see, I just got a text. I
was like, Ty over there wants some attention.
Did you clip
I seen it. I seen it when you scratched.
I cut the nails. I sure did cut those nails. Little terrorist.
Hey, what was I gonna say? Oh, Krista, I was going to say, I remember last year you put me in the same category as Leah B. Olson, and that was a little surreal. And now my face just turned red again. I don't know if you watched Alicia Milton-Jones's interview, but she did the same thing. Any of you watching this, the strategy, if you want to incapacitate me, just shower me with compliments when I don't see it coming, and I'm going to turn red and start blushing and have no words to say.
Crystal, that shows humility.
But you're right, Crystal. I did start with the girls, and it was the St. Paul Central super teams that got me into it. And then I started covering more boys games because it's like, hey, I'd like to see Jalen Suggs or your son, and I want to be there to say I was there to see their games too. And I know they are supportive, of the women's game. Jalen has a little sister who's going to be playing at Minnehaha, and your son happens to be good friends with one of the star players at De La Salle, who's now going to play for college. So everybody knows everybody. But why did you have to do this?
It's true, Mike. But what you didn't do, and what I find commendable, is that you didn't say, okay, I got this start, I built my portfolio or whatever. Now I'm going to go to boys and I'm going to forget about the girls. You continue to do it, and that's rare. That's rare. And that's what I find, really admirable about what you do.
And I was going to say with that North documentary, because I'm in my head, and Tisa, we should point out, also played with Crystal Taylor, another Division I prospect, or not prospect. That was years ago. She's done with that. But it's like, I'm counting in the head all of the Division I athletes at North that I am now friends with, and like Tisa, T, and Maya Johnson. I haven't met Mari yet. I'm sure I will. I think I met Tyree Bronson.
You might want to grab her and interview her.
And I've got Tamara Moore's old tape, so I'm like, hey, you know what? You should not put an idea in my head, but I remember, and when I was little, the North teams, the boys and the girls, how big a deal that was. Khalid El-Amin and what he was doing, and then the girls, Tamara Moore helped lead that program to their first state title. They ended up winning 5 in 7 years. So they were legit. Like, there's a word that I can't say or to keep it PG because Tisa's son is watching this, but it's like they were the blah, 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 if you know where I'm going.
Let me say this too. And since
the first undefeated team in the state, female team, first undefeated, 29-0.
29-0, baby, 29-0.
Since we're sharing some history here, and I will go on record as saying this, there would be no Hopkins High School. There would be no De La Salle High School in their greatness had it not been for what happened at Minneapolis North and those doors about to close. Imagine what that legacy would really be with all those, because remember, the team that Brianna had, the team when Brianna Edwards was a senior, those girls were 8th graders. Where did they go? They went to Hopkins. They went to Hopkins.
They went to Cooper.
And they went to Cooper. And that started the great runs that all 3 of those teams had. And all 3 of those teams ended up being state champions. Mind you, and their star key players, for the most part, came from that 8th grade team that was at Minneapolis, T.T. Starks at Hopkins. Sienna Johnson. I shouldn't start naming names because I don't know people's names right.
You got Ty Shauna, you got Alina Starr.
See what I'm saying? I said Sienna.
Sade Chapman, I think, went to Central and helped extend that legacy.
And Sade Chapman, she was an 8th grader on my team. Leia Rich, she went to Cooper. Chelsea McGee, all them kids.
And where did they live? Many of them lived on the north side. Nia Holly
Yeah, I was going to say Nia Holly. She wanted to play for South. She was a big Taylor Hill fan growing up.
With the Hopkins, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
North continue to stay open and not be threatened to close. Those kids perhaps
Would have been at North High.
Perhaps would have stayed at North, and no one would have touched that program.
Nope. I only went to North just to play basketball. I
Let me
watched
tell
all
y'all.
those teams.
Well,
I was at North. It just happened by accident. My sister went to North, and she's 9 years older than I am. This wasn't something that was planned. It wasn't something that we all got together and talked about. We all gonna go to the same school. No, we just happened to be at North, and this is what just happened to happen. Like, I knew Tierra Medlock. We knew each other when I lived over South as kids, and we got to North like, wait a minute. Oh, okay. So it was purely just an accident. And look what happened.
Greatness. Accident of greatness.
We're just going
nobody
to our
was
school.
recruiting. Nobody was recruiting players and getting players to come in. It was just an accident. It was an accident. I had babies as an accident. Everybody transferred and left North. It was just me. And then I got some babies, and I was like, all right, so this is what we're going to roll with it, because everybody dipped out on me. Because you got to think, Ephesian Holmes went to North. Markesia Cooper went to North. You had, Ephesian was there when I was an 8th grader. Then you also had Markesia Cooper, who went to Roosevelt. You had, what's her name? I can't think of her name. She went to Bloomington Kennedy. They like 8 players transferred from North going into my freshman year.
But the Hills live over North. The Hills, imagine had Taylor Hill.
Taylor was supposed to go to North, but I ain't gonna tell why she didn't.
North.
She dropped 38 on varsity, and she came and shadowed the next day. That's not a good look. She should have waited at least 2 weeks.
I'll never forget those battles. My one regret.
Taylor was supposed to go to North. PJ was there.
I remember that. PJ.
Will
went to
you
North.
stop, Bree? Will you stop, Bree?
But that's
the greatness at North.
Think about that. Think about that. Think of all those awesome, great players had they stayed. But they didn't leave because they didn't want to leave. They didn't leave. They did not leave. Let me say this too. They did not leave because they did not like North. They left because the school was threatened to close, went down to 50, 60 people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, which was another injustice to that neighborhood, to close all of those middle schools, their feeder schools, to close their surrounding schools, to force those kids out of there. Thank God the school is still going right now. You know what I mean? And it didn't close, and it started working back up to its greatness. The one thing that's missing though is those Sumatech programs, which is
that's one. Sumatech was phenomenal.
Proud to send their children to North, not just and I know Bree was like, I went there for basketball. A lot of people.
I was in Sumatech too.
I went there for Sumatech.
From other neighborhoods.
I went there for Sumatech.
Because
what is this Sumatech? Can you just explain it to me?
It's a math science program for gifted and talented students.
It was the STEM and STEAM before there was STEM and STEAM.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were doing
program.
We were doing CAD, and we were doing physics, and we were doing engineering. We were doing all that stuff at North, and that's why I went there. My sister went there. Well, both my sisters went there. Why would I not go to North and be in Sumatech?
Right.
I just want a clarification because I did not go to North. I really didn't cross over all that much until after I got to college and I started doing games. I was always a St. Paul guy, and I kind of regret it. I've said my one regret is with some of these athletes who became friends of mine is not covering them or having that opportunity. There's a part of me that would have loved to have gone back and watched Brianna play, but I didn't know who she was. It was all about Taylor Hill, but thankfully Brianna, got over that mostly.
Oh no, I didn't mind. I love Tay. I think we played together. That's like my sister.
I just remember you were upset though that I would cover all the South games and not North because you were going up together.
I was upset that the whole state didn't want to cover my games, and then they went with this whole
so it wasn't just me.
No, it wasn't just you. There's like 4 8th graders and a senior. Oh, now y'all want to see me playing the whole season like this? Okay.
You have to. I was in college too, so I was just and my first year in WNBA, and what you could tell if you go back to some of my old high school tapes. I don't know if I should be saying this on air, but if you watch my first games with Angel Robinson in Central or Taylor Hill, you could tell it was pretty green and still kind of learning the ropes, like who are the teams, who are the players, who are the people I need to keep an eye on. But
y'all just got my natural reaction when I seen food. I said, "Oh, I can get some food before I go to my meeting." I just seen Jersey Mike.
I'm sorry, but I do have to go and I gotta take Trey someplace real quick here. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I gotta get my child together.
If I wasn't on my laptop, yeah. I would just do what Bree did in terms of jumping in the vehicle. But
illegally drive with your mobile device on.
What you say, Tisa? I can't hear you. Huh? I'm just kidding.
Well, before you go, and I think we ought to do this again, because between this racial justice conversation and this history lesson about Minneapolis North and basketball, I think the four of us, and if we could get Jazz or Chris, oh geez, you and we could go in so many directions. But for people who would like to follow up with you, whether it's getting your insight or input on how we can move this conversation forward, or if they want to hear a little history about all the buckets you got at Minnesota in Crystal. And I know, Tisa, you went to SEMO, and as we try to jog your memory of your high school days, and Brianna and all what you did. But if anyone wants to follow up with you in any capacity, what's the best way to get a hold of you? And what would be just a short piece of advice you'd like to offer?
You could find me. Oh, sorry.
Come on, girl, go.
You can find me. Now you can find me on my social media, Brianna Edwards. I have 2 businesses. I do hair oils and beard oils, and I have a spice company. You can always find me on my social media. It's a profile picture of myself, or you can catch me at Cretin-Derham Hall this upcoming season, where we're gonna be dropping some waves. Y'all stay tuned for that. I'm gonna do the plug since Coach Crystal and Tisa are modest. I'm not. We on our way. Okay, that's how you can find me. And you can, my piece of advice though for this situation, just to be serious, is just to educate yourself. Do not trust what information someone's giving you. Go seek it yourself and try to be as knowledgeable as you can and understanding, and try to create change as you move forward in the universe.
You're being modest about your seasoning, honey, because that seasoning is bomb.
Thank you.
It's bomb. So yeah, stop being modest.
Thank you, baby cakes.
Baby cakes.
Baby cakes.
Well, I can be reached, social media. Facebook is really my big social platform. Crystal Flint. Just check in with me there. Don't send me any videos in my inbox, because I'm not opening those. I think they're hacked. So just come right on my page. Don't just say hi, Crystal, because I think those are hacks too. Say something with some substance, or leave your phone number or your email or something like that. But don't just say hey and wave. I'm ignoring those. Oh, advice. My advice is to get to know someone. I think that we have to branch out. If you go even on my Facebook page, and I know social media isn't always real life for a lot of us, but if you go on my social page and you look at my friend group, you will see all kinds of people. You're not just only going to see Black people, you're going to see all kinds of people that I interact with. And I think we should be more open to learning about other cultures, other people. When you don't know, ask. Try not to okay. Try not to let it be an ignorant question, but if it does come out as ignorant, be sincere enough to hear an answer. Don't be offended by someone's answer. I tell people, if you don't want to know the truth, don't ask me, because I may not tell you what you want to hear. But if in all sincerity, if you want to know something, ask. Don't assume. Don't go by what someone else says. Ask. Bree, what she got on? Go on, Tisa.
Don't reach me. Don't contact me. Seriously, I'm trying to finish this dissertation. I got stuff I gotta do.
PhD, let's go, Dr. Mitchell.
Unless you got some money for this tuition, I can't. Trying to get this thing done.
But she will
I got
later.
a toddler.
But she will later. After what date can
Yes.
they contact you, Coach Tisa? Because Coach Tisa actually is a very open person. I don't want it to come off like who she thinks she is. Don't nobody want to contact you anyway. Tell them what time.
I gotta focus.
This was the tone Tisa. This was the tone Tisa adopted with me when we first crossed paths, and so yeah, it took me a minute. And then when I realized she was joking, then we became friends. So
that sounded like something I would have said. Don't contact me.
But no, Tisa, I mean, we've joked about it. Even your husband has called you the smart one of the family, although I would say your husband knows a thing or two as well. And Titan, I imagine he's going to be a fountain of information. But any advice or how, if folks want to get a hold of you, because once you get this dissertation done and this doctorate, I mean, I wouldn't dispute your intelligence and your knowledge.
Contact me and I'll get in touch with Coach Tisa when it's appropriate.
Right.
Hey, I gotta go. Love y'all.
All right.
Yes, love you too.
Any advice, Tisa?
I don't think anybody's looking for me, but some advice I would have is you have to learn how to be happy with yourself, because no one else's happiness is your responsibility. And your happiness is only your responsibility. So that's something I think people often forget, is you have to find that within yourself. It's no one else's responsibility for your happiness except yourself. So you got to figure out what makes you happy, how to be happy. Yeah, you got to learn that first. That's all I got.
Well said, Tisa.
Well said. And I do hope, Tisa, that you do open yourself up, because I think others would learn a lot from you. And I say that seriously.
No, she'll be open after her dissertation.
Yes.
I need to buckle down. I need to buckle down. I have to get this done. I got to get this done.
You'll get it done.
So.
You'll get it done. Just give it time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You'll get it done. Yes. But I'm glad you and Brianna and Crystal, even though she had to take off here, took some time. And I think what has been the wackiest group panel discussion I've ever had has gone off the rails in so many directions. But I can have that kind of fun with you three. I'm not sure I could have it with the other panels. And they were all great, but I could tell there's a friendship that I've forged with all three of you that is still in progress with the others. And I hope I can get to that point where I can laugh it up with some of the other folks I've had on. But yeah, Tisa Mitchell and Brianna Edwards and Crystal Flint, even though she had to take off, I wanted to thank all three of you for coming on and offering your insight. And don't forget, if you want to see what Tisa looked like in her prime, check out my YouTube channel and watch some of those old North archives. And Brianna, we'll find a way to get you.
Brianna, already in her prime.
You're so sweet.
Brianna,
the next year though, after that was really my breakthrough year. That summer was a transitional summer. So going forward after that, it was a wrap. Everybody got the business.
So you know what? I've got some more digging to do. And Brianna, if you can find those old archives, we'll see if we can dig up some stuff from your glory days too, because I think you said you tossed them somewhere. I'm sure we can find them and remind everyone that
you probably can. You got to contact Channel 45. They got the state tournament game.
Bree, will you text me where you are? Because that place looks really cool.
Oh, I'm at Jersey Mike's.
Oh, that's Jersey Mike's?
Yeah, Uptown. I didn't even know there was a Jersey Mike's, but
that looks really, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm just getting me some food.
Okay.
Hopefully I
gotta go.
Oh, sorry.
I gotta go. I gotta get the baby together.
With that, thanks Tisa, thanks Brianna, and thank you Crystal. And if you want to join us for a future conversation, whether it's on racial justice, sports, or in the case of these three, pretty much any direction imaginable, contact me at tsbtelevision@gmail.com or find me at social media at @TheMikeKeaton on Twitter and Instagram. We'd love to have you on and share your story. And with that, thank you for watching this edition of Mic'd Up Sports. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.